And welcome to a new session on Aloysius Academia. In today's session, we're gonna cover something very interesting, and it's very related to writing. How to write when you write an essay, when you write a literature review, if you are preparing for your IELTS exam, even if you are writing a manuscript or even a lab report. Because all of these types of writing, they are all made up of the same unit, which is a paragraph. So all of them, they contain paragraphs, and in this first part of the video, we will cover how to build paragraphs. Okay, we will understand all the basics. I will give you specific techniques to use to make sure that each paragraph within the essay is built in a very academic way, and it will support the whole essay at the end. In the second part, we will talk about connecting paragraphs, and that's going to be in the next video. So please keep an eye on the channel. Let's start. So at the beginning, from the time when I was working as a writing tutor, I came across a lot of students who they all shared the same common problem, which is that when they want to start writing, they feel so lost. Okay, they feel that the essay that they are writing or the thesis they are writing, it's overwhelming. It's like it has a lot of parts. Maybe they are been asked to write a 5,000 word essay or something like that. So they are feeling very overwhelmed, very lost. Okay, and there are a few points that you need to think about when you want to write an essay, and that's this title. You need to break the writing into manageable levels. That's the most important recommendation I would give to you at this level. When you want to start writing your essay, try to break it down into manageable levels. What do I mean with manageable levels? So as I said, avoid trying writing the whole essay at once. You will feel overwhelmed. You will, if you try to write the whole essay at, for example, in one sitting, or just start writing without planning, without thinking, you will get a very bad essay at the end, because you have missed a lot of the steps that are essential before you start your essay. I have another video, you can check it on my channel, which is talking about how to plan for your for any manuscript or essay that you want to write. But in this video, the difference is that I am going to focus on a specific part of the essay. Okay, so writing a complete essay might feel too large, too confusing, too overwhelming to a lot of students. So the best thing that you should do, and that's the thing that we will learn today in this video, is to think about how to start writing the most important components of any writing you want to write, of any piece of writing, whether you're writing an assignment, an essay, an IELTS, for example, part 2 or part 1, you're writing even your manuscript. All of these types of writing, they all involve paragraphs. And that's the main focus of this video, is to understand and to learn how to write paragraphs and how to make them connected to one another. So what I found, that many students, when they are writing a paragraph, they are very interested in using, very fancy words, like, for example, firstly, moreover, therefore. These type of phrases, especially I believe international students, they will relate to that, because I know that we learn that while we are preparing for IELTS. We just get bombarded with these type of words, and once you start writing, you will just start throwing these words in the paragraph. Sometimes, and most of the times, I see students throwing them and putting them in places that are not very, it's not the best place to put. Okay, however, using these type of words, it's fine. Okay, and that will build something very important in the paragraph. It's called the cohesion. Okay, what do I mean with the cohesion? So when I say cohesion, I here refer to the language, such as pronouns, for example, he, she, it, conjunctions, like, for example, and, or, but, and linking expressions like however, therefore, additionally, in addition. These type of phrases, and the main role of these phrases is to connect ideas. Okay, so I see that many students are good at this part when writing paragraphs. They use a lot of linking words and pronouns and conjunctions that helps them to connect ideas. But any paragraph, there is another part that is as important as cohesion, and that part is called coherence. Okay, and I see many students forget that an essay has another main feature known as coherence. Most of the students just focus on cohesion and how to use these linking words, but they forget coherence. So what do I mean with coherence? Coherence here, I refer to whether the ideas that you are talking about are organized, are they developed in a logical sequence, are they connected to one another? And we will learn a lot in this video about coherence, about how ideas are connected, how ideas are developed within a paragraph. And to have a good coherence, you need to have also a good cohesion, which is using these, for example, linking words to be able to connect the ideas and have the developed sequence of ideas within the paragraph. And that's the main focus of our video. So let's start with defining what's a paragraph. So a paragraph, it's a group of sentences that develop one central point, okay? And every sentence within this paragraph, it must have a clear job. I will clarify later on what do I mean with job here, but just you need to um, uh, to understand that any paragraph, whether this paragraph is for, um, like for example, a university essay, an IELTS writing task 1, task 2, whether writing a literature review, lab report, PhD thesis, whatever writing you or piece of writing you're writing at the moment, this applies for all of them. This is going to be the definition of a paragraph. It's a group of sentences that develop one central point, and each sentence within that paragraph has a clear job. Okay, so whether you're writing in any type of these or other types, this is going to apply. However, the differences is that, for example, the exact type of evidence that you're going to put in the paragraph. So, for example, the evidence you're going to put in a paragraph within a PhD thesis is going to be different to a paragraph within IELTS Writing 2, for example. Even the length of the paragraph. So, usually in PhD thesis, for example, the paragraphs will be much, much longer than a paragraph in an IELTS Writing Task 2, for example, or Task 1. So these things might be different from one writing type to the other, but the definition itself, the essence of the definition, it's the same. Is that the paragraph needs to be made up of connected sentences that are developing one central point, and each sentence plays a specific role within the paragraph. So each paragraph has two main features, and you need to pay close attention to the points that we're gonna come up now. So the first thing is that a paragraph normally has one controlling idea. And I see that usually when I teach that to students, I find that they are confusing one controlling idea to one fact. So when I say that a paragraph normally has one controlling idea, it doesn't mean that the paragraph would have only one fact. What I mean with that is that all the information within that paragraph, they contribute to the same point. For example, you are talking about the advantage of something or the disadvantage of something. So you will have a paragraph talking about the advantages, and then you would have another paragraph talking about the disadvantages. Each of these paragraphs, they might contain different facts or multiple facts, but again, each paragraph, for example, the paragraph that is talking about the advantages, it's going to be have a central point or a central message, which is showing the advantage of whatever you're writing about. So that's the first feature, which is having one controlling idea. The second feature of a paragraph is that sentences must follow each other logically. Okay, I see many students, they focus or they think that to make sentences connect to one another logically, I just need to use linking words like furthermore or however, like for example, furthermore, however, things like that. So some students, they feel if I add however or furthermore, then I ticked that feature, and the sentences now are connected, but that is not what it means. So you need to show the relationship between two ideas when you are connecting one sentence to the other. And I will show you a specific technique to assess that and to apply that to your writing. Great. So let's dive now into writing paragraphs. So, of course, when you want to start writing a paragraph, the first thing you need to do is to write the first sentence of a paragraph. And the first sentence of a paragraph is called the topic sentence. Why is it called like that? Because that's the main definition of a topic sentence. So the topic sentence is the opening sentence of the paragraph, and the main job of this sentence, and that's what we just mentioned earlier when I said that each sentence within a paragraph needs to have a clear job. So the job or the role of the topic sentence in a paragraph is to tell the reader what the paragraph is going to be about, or what's the main point that we're going to discuss in this paragraph. So let's have an example to make it clearer. An example of a good topic sentence. So let's say that you're writing an essay about the benefit of recording lectures at university. Okay, so the topic is recorded lectures, and within that essay you're writing, you're writing a paragraph, and within that paragraph you want to convey the following idea. You want to say in that paragraph that the recorded lectures, they improve flexibility by allowing students to revisit difficult materials. So for example, if a student is attending a lecture and the topic was a bit too hard and they couldn't understand it as the lecture was being delivered, they can go back home and then they can rewatch it at their own time, and maybe they will, understand it better. So that's the main idea that you want to convey in a paragraph you want to write. So let's now combine the topic you have and the idea that you want to say in a good topic sentence for this paragraph. So a topic sentence, so a good opening sentence for such a paragraph, it's going to be something along this. Recorded lectures can make university learning more flexible by allowing students to revisit difficult materials. So if I am, for example, an exam marker for your university essay, or an IELTS examiner who is marking your work, reading this sentence, first of all, it tells me that, okay, this paragraph is going to be about recording lectures, and the student here, what they are mentioning, they are showing a positive thing about the benefit of recording lectures. So I expect that this paragraph is going to be about the advantages of recorded lectures. So it doesn't make any sense for a student to start with this sentence, and then the rest of the paragraph is going to be about the disadvantages of the recorded lectures. Okay, if you do that, then this will weaken your essay, weaken your writing overall. You won't get a good mark in IELTS, of course, and you won't get the best mark for your university essay either. And that's because you missed one of the main features of the paragraph, is that the main role of the opening sentence of a paragraph. It needs to tell you what this paragraph is going to be about. So a sentence like that, this tells you that this paragraph is going to be about recorded lectures, and it's going to be about the positive things of recorded lectures. Let's have a look at a weak example of a topic sentence for the same topic. So let's say that you want to write about this, and you start your opening sentence of the paragraph with this. There are many advantages and disadvantages of recorded lectures. So this sentence is a weak topic sentence. Why? Because although it does name the subject, which is recorded lectures, however, it doesn't give the paragraph a clear direction. Just reading this opening sentence, for me, for example, as a reader, I won't know whether this paragraph is going to be about the advantages of recorded lectures or the disadvantages of recorded lectures, what we're going to talk about in this paragraph. So you might feel that this is not very, important when it comes to, for example, cohesion, but it does. Especially if you are an international student, you might not feel that this is very important, but it does, and it will affect your mark in IELTS or in your university essays. So you need to understand that such a sentence, it's not a good opening sentence. So if you are ever wondering whether the opening sentence that you've just written for your paragraph, whether is a good topic sentence or not, just use this question and ask yourself this question after reading only the first sentence. can I predict what the rest of the paragraph will explain? So if you are now writing a paragraph and you have written and you have just written the opening sentence, ask yourself this question. After reading the first sentence, can I predict what the rest of the paragraph will explain? If your answer is no, then your topic sentence is vague, which means it's not very clear, and you need now to rewrite it. So a vague sentence is going to be something like that. A good one is going to be something like that, which gives a clear direction to the reader to what about this paragraph is going to be about. So now that we have learned how to start the paragraph, let's now dive deeper into the other sentences within a paragraph, how to frame them, how to build them. And to do that, there is many different ways, of course. Many students, they will be accustomed to use different methods. Not all of the students will, the same method will work for them. But the method we're gonna introduce here, I believe, in my personal opinion, is the best way to help you write a very well structured paragraph. And I here call it the ideal. So the ideal is just to build and develop paragraph, and it's just a framework. And you need to understand before I teach you the ideal and you start using it, the ideal is just a flexible planning guide. Okay, so it's not something firm. It's not something that you need to use it every single time you need to write a paragraph. It is just something to get you into the habit of thinking while you're writing the paragraph. So you will get into the habit of linking the ideas within the paragraph rather than having separate ideas connected with just a linking word and that's it, and the ideas will be disconnected. So ideal will just help you to plan your paragraph, but it's not compulsory 5 sentence formula. So let's understand now what ideal stands for. So ideal stands for the I for idea, develop, evidence or example, analyze, and link. So what I mean here, what I'm trying to say, is that each paragraph will be developed in this way. So it will start with an idea, and then you will develop the idea, and then you will use examples or evidence that support the development that you have just written, and then you will analyze the examples and evidence you've given, and then you will link them. Linking them means just, for example, summarizing what you've just said in the paragraph, or link it to the next paragraph. Let's have a look. So as you remember, at the very beginning when we defined the paragraph, we said it's a group of sentences that are connected, and each sentence needs to have a specific job. So here we will go through the jobs that each sentence or each part of the paragraph needs to play. So the first part, which is the idea, and there it's the sentence will state the paragraph main point. And we have covered that in the topic sentence. Then the develop. Develop, it just means you explain the point in more details. So if you're saying that recorded lectures are good for example, students so they would have more time to revise the material, now you need to develop this idea even more. Give more examples of how recorded lectures will help the students. Then you give example, you give real example of a student or maybe a survey or a study that found that recorded lectures really did help the students, for example, revising or understanding things better. So you need to use an example or evidence to support the explanation you've just given. And then you analyze. And here you will analyze the examples you gave. So for example, if you referenced a paper, for example, you need to interpret the evidence, the paper that you've mentioned, and then connect it to the argument. So your argument is, in this hypothetical example, that recorded lectures is good for the students. So that's your main argument. So now whatever evidence you gave, you need to interpret them and say, for example, this study was, for example, on 2,000 students from different departments, and it was so it was like not biased for just one type of students. So they were from, for example, they were from different years, something like that. And then after interpreting the evidence, you need to link it back to the argument. So at the end, you would say, and this, for example, supporting the fact that, or your argument that, or your claim that recorded lectures do help the students. Okay. And then you will end the paragraph with a link, or what we called a sentence, which you either summarize what you have just said in the paragraph, or you would just link it to the next paragraph. And so that's the bridge that we're talking about. So either you link it to the next paragraph, or maybe even next idea within the same paragraph, but it's like you finish that part, that idea, and now you need to link it to the following one. If you do that, you will have a very good cohesion of your essay, and this will be very visible to the examiners and to whoever is reading your work. It's going to be so obvious when it's compared to the other people who did not link the ideas in a very good way. So the last column here is just a very helpful column, okay, and it will help you be focused and to assess yourself as you are writing the paragraph. So all the questions within this column, they are very important, because if the sentence you have written answer the question that correspond to it, then this means that the sentence you have written, it was well developed and it's good. So for example, if you wrote the first topic sentence of the paragraph, have a look at this sentence, have a look at this question. What single point will this paragraph make? So if you find the answer of this question in your first sentence, it means your first sentence was well developed. So for example, what single point will this paragraph make? So if your topic sentence was as we showed earlier about the good example of a topic sentence, which is showed that you're talking about recorded lectures, and you said about the good points of a recorded lecture. So it showed the reader that this paragraph is going to be about recorded lectures, and it's going to be about the advantages of recorded lectures. So what single point will this paragraph make? That's answered through what you've written. However, if you use the other sentence, which is starting with just recorded lectures has advantages and disadvantages, does it answer this question? So what single point will this paragraph make? We don't know, because in your TOEIC sentence, you said recorded lectures will have advantages and disadvantages. So we don't know what is the main point of this paragraph. Okay, which means if the sentence doesn't answer this question, this means that you need to rewrite the sentence. So that's for the idea or the first sentence. So let's have a look at the development, or the sentences that develop your idea. So the questions you need to answer is why this is important, or how does it happen. So for example, why is it important? So if the next sentence after you introduce the topic, you talk about, for example, why recording lecture is important. You say it makes the students, for example, have more time to go back and read the materials. So that's one thing that you mentioned in the topic sentence. Now you need to develop and give more details, give other examples, okay? And then how does it happen? If it applies for the example you gave. So try these two questions, try to answer them using the sentences you wrote in the development, and if they answer these questions, then you are writing it in a good way. Then when it comes to the evidence and examples, what specific evidence, details, or examples show this? So if this question is answered by the sentences you wrote here, then you wrote them in a good way. Then we go to what does this show? How does it support my main point? Here when it comes to the synthesis of the analyze part. So these are just guiding questions, as we said. And then how does this support my overall answer, and what comes next? So if your final sentence in the paragraph, it doesn't answer this question, then it's not strong enough. Okay, so this is just a guiding question, so to help you to make sure that whatever you've written in the last part of your paragraph, is it good enough? Is it structured? Does it have a good cohesion and coherence or not? So try these questions, and this will help you a lot. Great. So now that we understood what's the ideal framework, let's have a real life example and see how the ideal framework will work in action. Okay. Before I move forward, please, if you find this video helpful, support the channel through liking, commenting, subscribing. This will encourage me a lot and upload more helpful video. Thank you. So let's say that you want to write a paragraph on the same topic we gave before, recorded lectures. So the first thing you need to do is planning notes. And in this planning notes, what you will do, you will use the ideal framework and see how each part and try to fill in each of the parts of the ideal. So the idea is recording provide flexibility. That's the idea you want to convey in the paragraph you want to write. Then you need to develop it, for example, with something light, like students can replay difficult explanation. Then it comes some evidence or examples. A study that found, for example, student understanding has improved with recorded lectures. So that's something, a good example. And then analyze. Here you can say, for example, this supports independent learning because it will allow the student to do some independent study at home, not only when they are in the lecture, but even when they go back home, they can do some independent study and go through the lecture on their own pace. And then finally, the link, which is, for example, you say, however, recording might affect attendance. So as I said here, because this is going to be the last sentence of your paragraph, we can see here that if you ending your paragraph with this sentence, for me as a reader, I would now notice that, okay, the next paragraph is going to be about the disadvantages because this paragraph ended with a disadvantage, which means the next paragraph is a disadvantage. This tells me that the job of this sentence is what we mentioned before. It's a bridge. So bridging to the next idea, which is the disadvantages. So now we have the planning notes. Let's now convert all that into a full paragraph and see how this paragraph will look like. So the paragraph will be made up of 6 sentences. Okay, and as I said, the ideal framework, it's not fixed for a 5-sentence framework or 5-sentence formula. They can be more than 5 sentences, but as well as long as you're going through this or you're developing in this way, you're developing the paragraph in this way through idea, then you develop the idea, then you give some examples in support of the idea, and then you analyze the examples you gave, and then you link into the next paragraph. It doesn't matter in how many sentences you would write, you would do all that, but it just, you need to have this flow. So let's have a look now. So the first sentence of such a paragraph is going to be something like that. Recorded lectures can make university learning more flexible for students who need to revisit difficult materials. So that's first sentence, and that fulfills the idea part of the framework. Then we get to the second sentence. A learner may not fully understand a complex explanation when hearing it only once during the live session. So now here you try to develop the idea sentence, the topic sentence, and that's a very nice development, okay? And then we can see in the third sentence, replaying the recording allows the learner to pause, take notes, and review the information at more suitable space. As we can see that the third one is also a developing sentence. So for just developing, we have now 2 sentences. So the first sentence was the topic sentence, and then sentence 2 and 3, they were just development of the idea, okay? And then we get to the fourth sentence, and there where we give examples. So the example here for that they gave, a student could replay the section of a statistic lecture that explains how to select an appropriate test before attempting the homework. So here just an example, maybe you would say in a study or something like that. So you refer a study or you refer something, some type of evidence that supports the ideas that you've just mentioned in the previous sentences. So that's a nice example. And then on the fifth, what they have done is that we can see recording can therefore support independent review. And here we did some analysis, which is we showed that this recording will help, for example, student independent studies. So, and again, I need to focus here that this is not the only ideas that you need to write. Maybe there is another idea to analyze, to use it for analysis. However, this is just an example, but I hope you get the idea of how you need to develop the whole paragraph, how the end of the paragraph needs to do some analysis of what you have just mentioned, and especially of the example you gave. And then we get to the last sentence, which is the linking sentence. And in that sentence, we see here, however, their possible effects on class attendance must also be considered. And that's the perfect closing sentence for this paragraph. If you are then after this paragraph, you will talk, for example, in the next paragraph on the advantages or about the advantages, then that's going to be the best closing sentence you would have, or the link sentence, because it will prepare me as a reader that for the next paragraph and bridge me to the next paragraph in which we start covering the disadvantages of recorded lectures.